I've talked about this a little bit before, willful ignorance or remaining stupid. And all of us are guilty of that to some extent. We have all these wonderful tools, and I've talked about that, to work our minds and make us more aware and make us understand or try to understand how we got to where we are and where we could possibly be going. That all entails a great deal of thought and using your rational abilities. We used to have colleges to help us with that. In our regular schools, the BA degree, the Bachelor of Arts, used to be the degree, and most people got that, and they majored in history or political science or English literature or whatever. And by the time I started college, the BBA, Bachelor of Business Administration, was coming along, and it was more geared toward specialization for the business community. But by and large, and that's the way I started out and then switched over to the liberal arts. But basically at that time, and this is the early 60s, mid 60s, you came out pretty much the same. The BBA had to take a lot of the same required courses your freshman and sophomore year that the BA had to take, and that was literature and history and certain math courses. Now, BBA took accounting, which the BA did not, and that does some things. But at one time, a liberal arts degree was to teach you to use your mind, and you learned what some people now call worthless things in literature, and fictional literature teaches us a lot and has since it's come about. We also, I remember the course, Western Civilization, and in the 60s the chant started, hey, hey, ho, ho, Western Civ has got to go. And we began tearing apart our foundations of who we were as a civilization and how we got to where we are. It's amazing to me, people right now, including professors, are decrying Western civilization, and the very institutions they are part of would not exist without Western civilization. And it's part of this thing of, there's an old saying about we are all born ignorant, but one must work hard to remain stupid. And there's another one from a comedian who was referring to, and this is from I think the 1930s. He was referring to a rival, and he said he was born stupid and he's been losing ground ever since. You know, so in many ways we can say the same thing. It's people are getting into college who can't read or write. They're graduating from high school and they can't compose a sentence. We're big into using pictures for our thoughts and feelings on our Twitter and text and emails and all that. And when I was in business, you had to be able to write a coherent, understandable proposal to present to a finance committee to justify the idea or the proposal of financing this particular project. It had to make sense, and you had to be able to do that in a way that and not in multiple huge long pages way, not 2,000 pages way, that the committee could make sense of it, and it would make sense financially and investment wise and yield wise and all the other things that you had to do. And, and at that time, most CEOs of Fortune 500 companies had BA degrees. They weren't. They didn't have advanced. The MBA was a coming thing, and a lot of people went on to law school who never practiced law. It was just used as a, because law school will teach you a way of thinking. Uh, some people would say amorally, but it teaches you to look at facts and figures, although you couldn't tell that by some of the lawyers you see practicing now. An attorney I admired greatly, who was dead by the time I was born, was a man named Clarence Darrow. And he took up a lot of what you would call, or we would call, lost causes. But in his summations, he would educate juries. He would take them, he would go back in time and he would educate them about the process, about how we arrived at where we were or where they were today. And that's what education's for. When I was a kid, they had a program on Sundays called Omnibus, which was many different things. That's what it means, basically. That program, and people thought television was the thing that was going to help the masses be more educated. And they would, on a Sunday afternoon, they would have ballet and opera and readings from literature and non-fiction and debates, and it was an amazing thing. And eventually it went away because it couldn't compete with pro football. And I love football, I do. And I'm probably one of the people that walked away from the program. But the thing is now we have this, which replaced television, is the idea of educating people. And the biggest, or used to, I don't know if this is still true, but the biggest money maker on the internet for years was, or maybe still is, was porno. And I'm not going to compare that to Amazon or any of the others. I don't know the dollar figures, but anyway, that says something and about us. And we're not using all the tools available to us to become better. I mean, and I understand a lot of teaching, and I was subject to this in public schools and maybe even some private schools. I never went to one. Can be really boring, and it drives you up the wall. But the books are the books, and I came along when TV was still relatively rare. You had like 3 channels if you were in a major city, and I spent a lot of time in the library because it opened up worlds that I didn't see from where I was. It was from a relatively small background, but I was lucky in that I had some grandparents who were big into books and whatnot, plus very active. And so you have to have an active mind as well as an active body. And I love sports and participated. We have people now who don't bother reading and who don't bother participating in sports. I mean, even in your high schools, when I started college, huge number of guys who could not, including me, who could not play in college, had played sports in high school, had run track, had played baseball, had played football, had played basketball, and all of that. And some of us weren't that good, but we had fun, and we enjoyed it, and we enjoyed the competition. And it was, and it's also a good way to meet girls. But, we're letting all that slip by. People have gotten unbelievably lazy. I mean, I was at a meeting some months ago, and it was almost everybody in there was around my age. We grew up in the 50s, and we were kind of talking about, somebody had been in a big department store, discount store, and commented on how overweight everybody was. And we looked it up, and in the 1960s, The average American male weighed like 166 pounds. Okay, and his average height was 5'9", maybe 5'10" on a stretch. The average American female weighed 120 pounds. Today, the average American male weighs in the 190s, and the average American female is pushing 160. You know, and like Jeff Foxworthy said when he was, one time he noticed when he was walking through Walmart, there are some people that should not wear spandex. And, you know, and we're making it okay to be vastly overweight and dumb. You know, I mean, being stupid is not a goal. And you can, I mean, some people say you can't cure stupid. Well, you can, just like you can cure ignorance. But you have to work at it. And as you get older, when you're younger, you think you're pretty smart. You really do. You think you're smarter than everybody. And if you have any brains whatsoever, as you get older and older, you start understanding you ain't that bright. And then you start trying to learn more. And then, like me, I'm 78. And it's just like, I mean, I thought I was pretty bright when I was in my 20s, but we just don't know that much. And I see people just degenerate constantly, and it starts here. You degenerate here, then it starts, and then it just goes on down. But willful ignorance, stupidity is not a way to live. Well, it is. But it's not much fun, and that's why marijuana, booze, and believe me, I have drunk my share of booze, constant, never-ending sports watching by people who have never, ever played in a sport in their lives goes on and on. And the whining, I'm going to do another deal on whining. But Whiner Nation is just pathetic. You folks have a good day.